Councillors, we might make a start. Welcome to the ordinary council meeting of the Narrabri Shire Council, 28th of May 2024. I advise that council will be recording this meeting today to be webcast and available on the internet. As such, all those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Can I ask that all councillors during the duration of the meeting limit discussions to only the business on the agenda and what is permissible under the adopted code of meeting practice. Members and officials are asked to be upstanding for the opening prayer, and I call upon Minister to lead us in prayer, if you wouldn't mind.
Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for sending your Son into this broken world to live, die and rise for our sins and to establish your kingdom of peace. Thank you for your daily and eternal provision as Creator for the rains, the crops, the soil and the land. Thank you for providing us with community, for individuals and organisations that live together under your gracious provision. Heavenly Father, thank you for this council, for the mayor, office holders and staff. Thank you for their skills, abilities, willingness to work for the good of our town. Thank you that they work under the lordship of Jesus. Please give them wisdom, discernment, humility, transparency and perseverance as they make decisions that are equitable and for the good of all stakeholders. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Please remain upstanding. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia, in particular the Gomeroi people of the Gamilaroi Nation, and recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and cultures and the culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Also, finally, our council recognises and acknowledges the sacrifice made by Australian servicemen and women, in particular those who gave their lives in defence of the freedom we enjoy today. You may be seated, everyone. Just a reminder that councillors are reminded of their obligation to declare any interest in any matters listed before them. In considering your interests, you are reminded to include pecuniary, significant, non-pecuniary and of course non-significant, non-pecuniary conflicts of interest, as well as any other interests you perceive or may be perceived of you. Councillors may declare an interest at the commencement of the meeting or alternatively at any time during the meeting should any issue progress or arise that would warrant a declaration. Councillors must state their reason in declaring any type of interest. We've had no application today for anyone to attend via audio visual link. Has anyone received anything? We formally haven't. Also, apologies. We have two apologies. We have an apology from, actually three apologies. Brett Dickinson, who is overseas for travel. Greg Lamont, who was the excuse? Was that for
I think Rowan was going to.
Did you? Asking for a leave of absence, and for I know Robert's for work. Is that Greg's is for work as well? I think they need to state their reason though. That's the only thing. Okay, excellent. No, that's great. I haven't received any other apologies or we've got John Clements. Councillor Clements has arrived at 4 minutes past 1. Thanks, Councillor. So I just hear a mover for those leave of absences. Seconder, Councillor Redding. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Declaration of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Do we have any declarations at all? Any declarations? Councillor Clements? Yes. No worries. Okay. Okay. No worries. Thank you very much. Any other declarations at all? No. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We do have a couple of items to be considered in confidential. One is a confidential report, and that's application for Community Financial Assistance Grant, and that will be dealt with at that juncture. And we also have a confidential report on the construction of curb and gutter infrastructure as well. So both those items we'll deal with that when we get to that. We don't have any presentations today, councillors. Moving on to item 9, which is confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover for those minutes to be confirmed? Councillor Redding and Councillor Campbell, would you like to speak to those minutes at all? No worries. Okay. We might, if there's any comments about the minutes at all from the council, any comments, concerns, etc., we might just put that to the floor. All those in favour, all those against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Matters of great urgency, item 10. Oh, do we have 2 sets of minutes? So, council, we have 2 sets of minutes that we need to confirm. Can I just take it? We will have it as another vote, but can we agree on those minutes for both together? I will just take another vote for both sets of minutes. So we've got the minutes for the ordinary council meeting, which was held on the 30th of April last month, and also the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting. So we'll take those both. All those in favour, all those against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that. Matters of great urgency. We've received no applications, and there's no matters of great urgency in today's agenda. Questions without notice, item 11, is also the case. There's nil reports. Get on to my mayoral minutes. Sure, we've had some time to read that. It's been. I was reading through it earlier this day, and just realised how much there's been a lot of things on this month. It's been a very busy month, and of course we had Anzac Day, which was, thank you so much, councillors, for attending those Anzac Day events. You can see how much it means to the community, and what a sacred, solemn day Anzac Day is for all of us, and how important it is. And thank you for doing such a great job, and particularly those councillors who had to travel to places like Wobbegar and Pilliga and Ballatta and Maules Creek. There was some big distances covered, so thank you very much for all the work you've done on that one, which is great. We have, in the last month, there's just been a number of items, a number of issues I've attended to, but I think one of the interesting things was an event that I attended, which is an LG New South Wales conference, where there was a number of speakers speaking about financial sustainability of councils, and I think it certainly pointed out that a vast number of councils in New South Wales are going to struggle, particularly on the numbers and the ratios that were presented. There was a particularly interesting fellow called, Rob and I both heard him speak, called Professor Joseph Drew, who is from the University of Newcastle, but he certainly is a very interesting person when it comes to discussions around the financial sustainability, and certainly about the increasing need for both the federal and the state governments to properly support council activities and services in our areas. And one of the arguments he was presenting is that there's actually, it's pretty much almost in the constitution, or it's certainly in some of the legislation that our councils need to provide, that the federal government needs to definitely support local councils more than they currently are. So I think country mayors and local government in New South Wales are both looking at ways of perhaps really driving the numbers around financial sustainability, because it's not just about the behaviours or the actions of individual councils, it's also the constant push towards councils providing greater services with less money, and it's a bit of a tough one. So it was certainly interesting. The Premier spoke. We had people at Jenny Aitchison speaking, the Minister for Regional Roads, who will be coming to Narrabri at some stage in the next few weeks, which will be great. And there'll be a number of other important people from across both state and federal governments. It's always interesting to hear different perspectives. I also attended the debutante ball this year, which was a terrific event. It was the 50th debutante ball, and it was just wonderful to see so many young people there. And I never had a debutante. I don't know whether anyone else here did here, but it was certainly an interesting event to attend. So I put that to council. Are there any comments or questions about the mayoral minutes? More than happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll put it to the floor. Sorry, anyone want to? All right. I'll move my mayoral minutes, and all those in favour, all those against, it's carried. Thank you very much. Delegates report. This is item 13.1, which is the delegates report to the Whitehaven Vickery Extension Project, CCC. It's as written in there. Do I have any comments? I'm happy to move that if you like. Oh, actually, someone else can move it. Go have a mover for those. Councillor Clements, Councillor Campbell, thank you very much. Any comments? All those in favour? All those against? It's carried. Thank you. Notices of motion. We have nil reports as item 14. Item 15. This is General Manager's reports under this section. So we've got the resolutions register there. Might just get. Does anyone want? Can I pass to the General Manager to just give us just a bit of a top line on that?
Well, we'll take the report as read. Staff run through the resolutions register every month to conclude any items that have been completed, or you'll see them still there as action points. Some are longer term, but they're all there. The number is reducing over time, but happy to take questions.
Any comments from council? I'll ask for a mover of that motion that the council receives and notes the outstanding resolutions register as at 20 May, and the council receives and note the completed resolution register at 20 May. Councillor Clements, thank you. Councillor Baum. put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move to item 15.2, and this is the Operational and Service Plan Quarterly Report, 1st of January through to the 31st of March 2024. Recommendation here is that Council adopt the Quarter 3 23-24 Quarterly Operational Plan Progress Report as attached, detailing that Council's progress in meeting its actions, capital works and key performance measures for the period 1st of January 24 to 31st of March 2024. I might just pass that to the manager, Manager of Governance and Risk, who can just give us just a quick little update on that, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, rushed ahead there. The high level of this is that it's looking fairly promising, with about an 85% on track or completed rate. We've put a lot of effort in over the last, I suppose, 18 months to really get some discipline. There's a word that I just lost. Get some discipline and thoroughness in the reporting. So our hope is that figure is pretty accurate. So that's pretty good, considering all the current limitations in the economy of getting contractors and suppliers and whatnot. So it's looking pretty good.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do you have any questions or comments about this, or should we move to the next? Councillor Bohm.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to thank the governance team for work in preparing this report. The manager said that there's been a lot of focus and diligence on getting things done, and I would say that in my reading of this, even though I can't see inside all of the box or under the bonnet, so to speak, the thoroughness of reporting is significantly improved, I would have to say. I think that's probably a commendation to the General Manager and his team to make sure that these things are actually these are reported with diligence and focus on transparency, and I think that's a significant change that I would make or note. That's my noting of it. So I just thank you for the team for that as a genuine effort. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that as a comment. Any other comments, questions for the team? Do I have a mover on that motion then? Councillor Clements, Councillor Richardson, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor?
Thank you. Look, I would concur with Councillor Bowen's comments, and I'm sure other councillors, that this is a standard of reporting that shows accountability, and that's such an important mechanism, as our General Manager with his experience would understand. Accountability is key to performance, and it's key to the public's confidence, and I think the reporting's great. It shows accountability, as I've said several times here. That's how the public marks us, that's how it measures us, that's how, in terms of our role as elected people, that's how we engage with staff. So a great report, and I know it's taken a year to turn this reporting process into what it is today, and again, my appreciation.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments at this stage for or against the motion? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously, Council. Thank you. Okay, we are at item 16.1, which is the quarterly budget review statement, and this is March 2024. The recommendation here is that Council adopts the statement for the period ending 31st of March 2024. Look, I might just, through the General Manager, just hand it over to the Director of Financial and Commercial Services, just for a top-line comment, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the General Manager. Councillors, again, I'll take this report as read. effectively the current situation on the review for the quarter ended 31 March for Council's consideration shows that the operating surplus budgeted projected for the year ended 30 June 2024 is estimated to be at about $5.7 million, which is better than our original adopted budget by virtue of there's some changes there in relation to our capital program. We found some savings within some of the programs. That doesn't account for anything that we have to do on a yearly basis in terms of any fixed assets or non-current asset impairments, though, but we won't know what that's going to be until the conclusion of the financial year. But at this stage, the budget is looking very healthy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. Any comments or questions for the Director before we move into the formal motion? No. Who would like to move that motion? Councillor Redding, thank you very much. And Councillor Clements, thank you. Councillor Redding, would you like to speak to your motion or?
No, not really. It's all explained very well in there. I do concur with Councillor Bowen and Councillor Clements on the way the reporting is done for us. It's all very clear, very self-explanatory. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments from the Council? In case, I will put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillors. That takes us to item 16.2, which is the monthly financial report for the month of April 2024. The recommendation here is that Council received a note, the monthly financial report for April 2024. I doubt there's anything further the Director has to add to that. No worries. Do I have anyone who'd like to move that motion, please? The mover? I reckon Councillor Clements, and then seconded by Councillor Redding. Thank you very much. Councillor, would you like to speak to your motion at all?
Very briefly, again, I thank the staff for their efforts, and this is a time of the year when there's been an intense interaction between the elected staff and the elected councillors and staff on budget matters, and I think that we feel like we've been well briefed and well responded to. Quite confident in endorsing this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments for or against this motion? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you again. Item 16.3, which is the investment report for April 2024. There's never usually a lot of comments, but I will put it through the General Manager, through to the Director, and see whether he wants to just say anything at all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the General Manager. To councillors, yet again, take the report as read. You'll note that reported interest income to the period to 30th of April was about 2.743 million. And it still continues to rise as a result of the portfolio investments that we have. Excuse me. And we're investing in accordance with the investment policy as always. So that those two graphs, the budget versus actual, will actually come together as a result of the revised QBR budget, and hopefully we'll be on track for the rest of the year.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bowen, you have a question for the Director?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Mayor. The question is related to the total expenditure that we have scheduled or budgeted for the next financial year. Just having a reassurance, I guess, from General Manager through to the Director that we have sufficient coverage in line with the amount of funds that should be held in reserve related to the total expenditure anticipated. So the total expenditure for the next financial year is something in the order of $104 million, unless I'm wrong. That's the total number of dollars out. Do we have enough, and are you able to assure the community that we have sufficient in reserves to be able to cover any unexpected emergencies and who knows what, when wheels fall off wagons globally?
Thank you, councillor. Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Through the GM. Yes, we're reasonably confident. We can obviously not be 100% confident for the unexplained and unexpected, but based on the budget figures, the reserves that we have and the expected income for the year, we expect that we'll be able to cover any insignificant shortfalls.
Thank you very much. Any other comments before we put it to the floor? Do I have a mover on this motion? Councillor Bowen, seconder. Councillor Richardson, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion? No worries. Any other comments? Anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Council. So we move on to item 16.4, which is application for concessional use of the Crossing Theatre for an organisation called Compassionate Friends, New South Wales, Narrabri. From time to time, obviously, people ask for concessional use of the Crossing Theatre, and we as a council get to make a decision on that. The recommendation here is that council approves the concessional use rate of 50% of the room hire to the Compassionate Friends New South Wales Narrabri branch. I'm sure you've all read through that. Are there any comments? I think it's sort of fairly self-explanatory what this organisation is involved in and what concession that they receive. Do I have a mover on that motion? Councillor Clements, thank you. Councillor Richardson, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion at all, Council?
Very briefly, look, the organisation seems to provide such a very necessary support for people in particular, difficult circumstances, tragic circumstances. And the Crossing Theatre is, it's something that we need to try and we need to make it pay its way, but also it is a community centre as well, and we should always make it easy for community groups to use it, and I endorse this proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments for or against? I'll put it to the meeting. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. We move on to section 17, which is all about infrastructure delivery. So the first item is 17.1, which is infrastructure delivery status report, April 2024. That we receive and note the infrastructure delivery status report for April 2024. Just through the General Manager, I might just get the Director of Infrastructure Delivery just to give her top line on her portfolio.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As detailed in the report, movements from the ID team over the past month of April. Any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions for the Director or the GM? Any comments to make? Councillor.
Just quickly, if I can, thank you, Director, for that report. It seems to be fairly comprehensive. I had the opportunity to do the full length of the Pilliga to Weewar Road just recently. I know there's still some significant work in progress there, but if I can, on reflection, the Narrabri section of that road is significantly different from, or improved, the Canamble Shire and the Walker Shire parts of those roads. Is there discussions about, or have there been discussions within your directorate regarding having some contiguous investment by state government to then to have the remainder of the road by other councils? And I know this is not directly our responsibility, but in terms of a through road, an important piece of regional infrastructure, are we talking to other councils and state government to have that standard of road that we now have, right the way through to Canamble.
Thank you. Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There haven't been any recent conversations, but back, if you recall, I think it was the end of the last council term, there was the regional road, the transfer back to state. They put it back to councils to put the application in, and that's when we had conversations with a variety of shires on the regional roads. So Pilliga is one of those regional roads. Unfortunately, Walgett Shire then was not in a place where they could come on board with us and put that application in together. We, as a Narrabri Shire, put that application in. To date, we haven't heard back about that. I know that's political in nature, so I'll leave it to the politics in the room. But there hasn't been any recent conversation, but happy to raise that again. It's similar to how we've had discussions with Warren Bungles about Cypress Way. We've got that joint report there, so we can definitely have conversations with on Pilliga Road.
That's a good question. Any other questions for the Director?
Just on that Pilliga Road, I know that I travel out that road a lot, and to come by chance through to Walgett, there's been a lot of work done on the road. They sort of started from Pilliga through to Walgett. They've started and they've pulled up, but I have heard via people out there that they're going to continue that road and they have the funding to do it. It's a big job, but they've done a significant amount of work, and there's a whole heap of pipe work going along the line, culverts and all that sort of stuff as well. That'd be a great project to get done.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. The Regional Roads Minister will be here at some stage in the next few weeks, so we might raise both of those, both Cypress Way as well as Pilliga Road, with her and see what she's got to say about that. But good point, thank you. Any other comments? Do I have a mover for that motion, please? Councillor Campbell, Councillor Richardson, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion at all? No worries. I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is 17.2, and for this item I will I'll just read out. It's the regulation amendment to protect the employment of waste workers. Councillor Clements has left the chamber at 1:32. This item here is that Council receives and notes the letter to the Honourable Ron Honig MP by the Northern Inland Regional Waste Group. That Council writes to the Minister for Industrial Relations, Minister for Local Government and the Member for Barwon, Mr Roy Butler, expressing serious concerns about the recent amendment to the Local Government Regulation 2024 New South Wales, made by the regulation as listed there on December 2023, as highlighted legal advice provided to LG New South Wales by Mr Arthur Moses, SC, dated 26th of February 2024, and also finally calls on the New South Wales Government to reconsider the amendments as a matter of urgency and to engage in proper consultation with all relevant stakeholders on an appropriate way forward. So there's a bit of reading in there, councillors, but I think I'll call on our manager, Jason, just to, if he could just give us a top line on this matter through the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The long and short of this one is that the amendment regulation essentially imposes new requirements when councils are tendering for waste providers. And the long and short of that is basically that when we go out to tender, we have to include certain undertakings. So in essence, we have to require that any tenderers undertake to employ employees of the current contractor on the same terms and conditions that they're currently under, including carrying over things like leave entitlements and other entitlements. It also requires us to make effort to obtain details from the current provider as to what they're paying employees. It's de-identified. It's not like we get a list of employees and what they're all paid and what their entitlements are. But what it would require us to do is try to get full details in an aggregated sense of what people are paid. And the third element then is that the undertaking from the tenderer requires the approval, or there's a veto power, for want of a better term, on the part of the unions. So the unions can say, no, we're not satisfied with that tender or this tenderer's efforts in this regard. With no real criteria around what the unions have to consider or what would be, what their criteria can be. So there are obviously a few concerns that the advice from Arthur Moses fairly clearly lays them out, and it's an advice that I agree with from a legal interpretation point of view. There are just some issues with this that we have concerns about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Townsend. Sorry, can I ask just through the yeah, we can put the motion, sure. Do I have a mover of that motion? Councillor Campbell, have a seconder? Councillor Redding, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm shocked by this, quite frankly. I mean, whether it be in the waste industry or any competitive tenders, it takes the competitiveness out of it. It's a circumstance where how can you have a competitive tender when there's a whole lot of criteria? It concerns me of the union involvement. I've never heard of such a thing, and it's obviously written by people who have no concept of business and tendering and how the process works. And all it does is enable the major players and the multinationals, it keeps them there, it keeps them in this place, and it takes the competitiveness out of it, because how do you do a tender up reflecting on the existing employees that they've got, their personal information, their personal work records? How do you do a competitive tender? How do you make that tender better when you've got all this criteria? Obviously there's an award that exists for all workers in all industries. That is the mainstay for the people tendering on this, not what the unions want. So yeah, I find it quite bizarre, to be honest with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any other comments for or against this motion? Councillor Bowen.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm not quite as alarmed about this as Councillor Campbell already is. I guess it might be because I may not understand the full depth of what's involved with this. But if I may then, as a question, I guess, more to expand this out a little bit further, I think this could take a little bit more discussion if the Mayor would allow us to discuss this in depth and maybe certainly address Councillor Campbell's issues. I wouldn't want any situation whereby tenderers of any type, that this would then run right through a whole swag of local government tendering and so on. So but I fail to see why an employee wouldn't be able to expect the same set of conditions and that when another tender is accepted, because presumably then that applies to our own staff as well. So if the director, through your general manager, can explain then in a bit more detail, because I haven't found it in your discussion as to what are the direct implications for us as a council employing not only waste people, but waste issues, but then or waste services, but in other parts of our operations. And I would be then more concerned, as Councillor Campbell would be.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the General Manager, I'll just hand it back to the Manager, Jason, just to kind of give us some further implications and concerns as he's allowed.
Perhaps I probably didn't explain it perfectly. So basically, if you have a scenario where we go out for tender and there are two tenderers, one being the current provider and another being another provider that wants to take the contract effectively, what the regulations require is that the new provider has to employ the current provider's employees, all of them, whether they need them or not, whether they fit their structure or not, or whether they've already got employees of their own or not, on the same terms and conditions with no loss of entitlement. So, yeah, that's the, the intent behind it is that the local workers aren't out of a job, but the difficult part is that it then hamstrings any provider, and it gives a competitive advantage to the current provider. The other issue, or one of the other issues, relates to the entitlements. The regulation provides that the new provider has to give those employees, which it's effectively forced to take on, the same entitlements that they had at the time the contract changed over. But there's no provision for the company they were working for to transfer anything over to the new company. So on the one hand, councils, as part of their contract fee, paid contractor A for those entitlements, and now we're going to have to pay contractor B for them again. And contractor A basically just gets away with adding those back into their general revenue. So it's problematic in those ways.
Through the chair, can I ask a question of the manager, just to see if I could seek a bit more clarity on one issue that may help? I don't know if it will, because I don't know what the answer to this question is, but I think I probably would know what the answer to the question should be. In the scenario where you have a very poor performing contractor undertaking a waste management contract, and you only have one other tenderer that applies for the job, is the implication of what you're suggesting that that new provider, regardless of price, would still have to take on the poor performing staff from the initial provider?
That's right, yeah.
So to summarise that question, which I thought I knew the answer to, and I'm very pleased that is the answer to that question that I just asked, is that it prevents any innovation within large contracts that local governments want to undertake, because it's hamstringing any new providers to provide innovation, particularly for poor performing contractors where there is that obligation to employ all of the staff that were actually running that poor providing contract.
Can I ask another question from the manager too? Sorry, to Jason too. But with the veto power, which is an unconditional veto power, and this is through the general manager, of course, the union veto power for any of these tenders. Does that provide any potential avenues for bad behaviour in any way, or is there any kind of what did the barrister or the state council SC say about those types of things, that there was potentially room for any bad behaviour, or what was the thinking there?
I'm not sure he touched on it, but like you said, it is basically an unfettered discretion on the part of the unions. That kind of discretion without, I suppose, framework around it, or without, real measurable criteria around it, always comes with the risk or the potential at some point for bad players to take advantage of that. necessarily say the unions or the waste industry are bad players, but there's, it creates an opportunity or a potential.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any other comments? We've got a mover and a seconder, but any other questions? It's obviously quite a complex matter, this one, and feel free to throw other issues into the mix. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. My previous contribution was by way of question. Now I'm prepared to, having now heard, if I may, then be in support of Councillor Campbell's assertion, and then also through the discussion that we've had from the General Manager and the Manager, it would seem that that we ought to be against the provision as presented. Now, I have that clarity. I wasn't really clear about that in reading through the material, but I'm pretty clear about that now, and I just don't believe that it would. I would believe that then also would represent the thin edge of the wedge, but for other services that we may, and we don't know what the future of local government is going to look like in terms of what are the things that we're expected to provide. By and large, but if competitiveness and particularly innovation, we're in a very significantly changing economic environment now, where waste and a whole lot of other services will dramatically shift from where we are currently, and I don't really believe we should be supporting areas where innovation, in particular, and productivity, especially, will be limited by provisions that that are now being described here. And I would certainly be supportive of the motion as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Any other comments about this motion of for or against? Councillors, I put that to the floor. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Could someone call back Councillor Clements, if possible? Councillor Clements returned at 1:47. Councillors, we'll move on to item 17.3, which is MR 357, Rangarai Road, unsealed section status. The recommendation here is that the council receive and notes the report, MR 357, Rangarai Road, unsealed section status. I might, through the General Manager, give that to the Director of Infrastructure Delivery. Just give us a top line on this one, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report we've put in due to the basically great amount of community concern that's come through. So we've had a lot of complaints lodged requesting either inspections or grading. So we've just put a report to council, also noting that we've done advocacy this year from council. Mayor's written letters to both state government and federal governments. I believe the local minister as well. So we've done a lot of advocacy around this, and as you know, we've got money in next year's draft budget that's out at the moment to get this fully designed and all the investigations done, pre-construction investigations done, so we can, once we receive funding, get straight into doing the job. I have at the bottom of this report, we included some information to say if we did loan it. So there's a high-level estimation, very high-level estimation. Ted's team helped me out here. A 10-year loan, I believe the interest rate we used was 6.675. And the repayments would be in the realms of about 1.3, but 1.7 there includes depreciation as well. You know, with any new asset or assets in general, we have depreciation. Also to highlight on here is the traffic count. We need to do a few more traffic counts to get some more data we could get some real findings from. But you can see there, it's really clear that there's less traffic using the Kamilaroi, there's more traffic using our local roads. And you can see about 50% are going in and out of the Shire. So about 50% is out of the Shire, the rest is our Narrabri Shire network. So that's some high level hypotheses you can make from the data there.
Thank you very much. Councillors, do we have any just questions for the Director, for the General Manager, or for our the Director of Finance? Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor, through the General Manager to the Director. I'm just wondering then if you could provide some information then given we've got a budget allocation next year for the design process. First question is that would be anticipated to be completed in the next financial year. And then secondly, then once that design is complete, then that would put the Shire in a position to then apply directly for funding. Am I right in that observation, or in that in the question, or the answer to that question? So can we then assume that we've got a design, we can then apply for funding, then we can do the project? If that was the scenario, over what time frame would you broadly anticipate that we would be constructing and completing that design? Because there we look against that against the opportunity then to invest in a loan that would then see that, and that's the value proposition that we would need to look at some stage down the track as to whether we take a loan or whether we just take it as a normal process of design, funding and construction.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We actually have applied for funding for this road. However, to get a really good application, you need to have these pre-construction works done. So the application we've made recently has some high-level estimates. However, once we have those, say the design and pre-construction work, which is the geotech and REF, we actually have really firm estimations of what the work entails. So we've put in for a grant application already with the state government, I believe. However, we may fall short of exactly how much. The geotech might come back saying we need to do a lot more to the road than what we thought we needed to. So we have applied for funding, so we're going to keep applying for funding to see if we can get anything. However, the best way to approach it is, as you said, get the design, those investigation works done, apply for funding. The funding process takes quite some time. You would have seen, as an example, just recently we've got the announcement of funding last week. That application went in 14 months ago, and it was only just announced now, and we're still going through the process of getting the deed finalised, which takes about, could be 3 to 6 months to get a deed finalised, depending on the funding body. So just to get the funding could be 2 years. And then once that's done, especially if we've got design and all those pre-construction works done, we can get straight into it. As soon as we've got the deed finalised, we can get a tender out and go for it. Does that help? So about 2 to 3 years.
Thank you, Director. So these are the shovel-ready projects is what we're sort of aiming for. So that's great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for the Director? Do I have a mover on this motion? Councillor Richardson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Clements, I think that was you. Councillor Richardson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would, thank you. It's been no secret that this council has advocated to state, federal, local members, ministers, anyone who will take our letter. We have asked for help for this road. It's something that, as every year passes, it increases in cost. As we can see with the traffic count, there is a lot more vehicles on that road, and it would be good to actually be able to identify some vehicles, because there is buses, there is trucks, there is cars that use it every day. It's not just one person in one car. So I think there was 156 vehicles in one spot versus 301 in another. But times that by 5 people in a car, times that by 10 people in a bus, times that literally cattle, grain. everything like that, caravanners, tourism, it adds up. And, you know, Director Chaplin mentioned that at times that road is more heavily used than the Kamilaroi Highway. That's alarming, and it should be alarming to state, to federal governments. I do hope Jenny Atchison with the roads and transport does get time when she's up here to actually go be on the side of that road in those peak times between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. to see the amount of traffic, to see the amount of dust come after a rain event. I do thank our roads team. In a general rule of thumb, a regional dirt road will only get graded twice a year. That road is having to see our grader every at least second month on it. And it's roughly estimated that the grade is there for 10 days every time. So it's not just hurting Rangarai Road specifically, it's hurting our Shire road networks, because now that grader for 10 days, more often than not, is unavailable for other local roads. So it's having a flow-on effect, especially when it does rain. There is about 2 or 3 spots that Rangarai Road floods. So it could be graded perfectly fine today. We get a rain event, as is what's expected on Friday. Saturday, gone. So it's in a condition that's damaging cars, hurting people, stuff like that, that we don't want that reputation. It's a vital road. And I just think whoever will listen, we need to keep advocating, keep writing. I do know our director and teams have applied for grants in the past for it unsuccessfully, to note. And I think it's good that moving forward next year, if our budget is adopted, we've gone enough is enough. We're now allocating money to do our own design, to get the engineering done. We've got a shovel-ready project. We're looking at a project roughly over $10 million now, when, you know, 5 years ago, probably would have been around that $4 to $6 million. So, yeah, glad for the transparency with our community, and we'll keep advocating as much as we can. And if anyone's got a spare $10 million, please feel free to seal Rangarai Road.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Yes, can I just through the General Manager to the Director?
Sorry, I may have misled you there when I said the Kamilaroi Highway, less traffic are coming from the Kamilaroi. So it's not less traffic is on the Kamilaroi compared to Rangarai, it's that less traffic are using the Kamilaroi than they were. So people say Donna, who goes home to Tamworth, uses Rangarai, so all the local roads, as opposed to the Kamilaroi Highway. Sorry, Donna, as an example. So less people are just deciding to use our local roads more so than the Kamilaroi. There's still, I can't say for sure because we didn't have a count on the Kamilaroi, but we can tell from the counter we had just near the Kamilaroi that less traffic are entering from there, and there's more traffic coming out the end than there ever was on the end of our Shire boundary, which means people are using our local roads more so than the Kamilaroi.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I don't want Ali up the back there to misquote anyone.
Even if the road's sealed, I might just get the Director just to answer this one, but even if the road is sealed, there is still an obligation on the council to maintain that. What's the annual maintenance fee in your estimate for that sealed section of the road?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you can see that I put some estimates as to annual maintenance costs. So year on year, it's about 10 to 20 grand in terms of maintenance. However, with sealed roads, it reseals and rehabilitation, which is what we're doing on, say, Doreen Lane at the moment, where we rehabilitate the pavement. So the reseals happen every 10 years, and that would be about 315,000. And then rehabilitations are completed every 20 to 25. These are ideal as well. This is what we want to do. Would be 3.15 to 4.2 million every iteration. So there's still quite a maintenance cost that we'd have to account for. So that's where that depreciation cost would have to be put away. So there's still a large amount of costs in there that we have to wear each day.
Thank you very much. To the General Manager.
Sorry, through the Mayor. I just wanted to clarify an absolute certainty. I certainly don't want to change the direction of the report or where council is heading on this particular issue, but I thought it was important to include some figures for the cost of maintaining sealed roads as opposed to the $100,000 a year that we do spend on Rangirai Road. And that is the fact that the minute that the road becomes sealed, it's going to cost the council and the community 4 times the amount as it would as if it's an unsealed road. So again, I'm not saying that with any particular intent in mind, other than just alert the community to the fact that some people think that sealed roads are cheaper to maintain because they're sealed. They're actually more expensive to maintain because of the nature of depreciation and the work that needs to be done on a cyclic basis.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager. Do you have any other comments for or against this motion from the floor? Any of the councillors wish to make a comment about this at all? Would you like to make any comments as your closing arguments, or would you happy for this just to go to the floor for a vote? No worries. I'll put that to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. That takes us to item 17.4, which here is the Tarrawan and Old Narrabri Road intersection and road upgrade project. Recommendation here is that Council receives and notes the report Tarrawan and Old Narrabri Road intersection and road upgrade report. Before we go any further, I'll just, through the General Manager, I'll just get the Director to speak to this and just give her give a top line, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you would all know, last council meeting we had Mr. Hatton come in and make a presentation. This report is a follow-up from his presentation. Long story short, we had committed to get a flood impact assessment. We've been dealing with WRM. We started to engage them. Their initial cost estimate was below the $5,000 mark. However, once they started looking at the data, there was a lack of data in that area, so they need to do significant work. And it's come back that their new cost estimate will be about $20,000. Because of that and our procurement policy, we have to go out and get another quote. So we're working with Alluvium to get another quote, and that's still in progress. Both consulting firms being quite reputable, and we use them quite often. So I'm quite comfortable in using either. We definitely just have to get the 2 quotes to keep Ted happy and Jason. But we'll keep you posted on that. If there's any other questions, let me know. Oh, and also I should note that there is sufficient funds in the budget, so we don't need any more money to do that.
Thank you very much, Director. Councillor Clements? Okay. You've got a mover. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Bowen. Councillor Clements, would you like to speak to your motion?
Briefly, yes. Look, thank the staff for a very prompt response to what was a distressed resident, and I would assume that we've informed him of the efforts, and I commend the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other councillors with a for or against? Any kind of comments? Put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. We move on to section 18, which is all about planning and sustainability. The first item there is 18.1, which is the Council receives the Planning and Development Report for April 2024. I'll just, through the General Manager, just call on the Director just to give her top line, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the General Manager, the report's as read, gives an indication of current workload and key issues. Notable is the resourcing for the team. We've been successful in attracting a qualified town planner, as I mentioned last meeting. We also have a trainee building surveyor that's gone out to market, so we're focusing on growing our own. The other item of interest is around artificial intelligence. We had put in quite a bit of work around looking at council being an early adopter of an AI program to facilitate better use of the planning portal, particularly for pre-lodgement. Unfortunately, it's too early for us and a lot of rural regional councils, but we'll continue to monitor how that initiatives are progressing, and as our other councils pick it up and there's better technology and understanding of what the landscape's going to look like, we'll certainly revisit that initiative. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. Do we have any questions? Do I have a mover for this motion, please? Councillor Clements, a seconder for the motion, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Clements, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you. It's self-evident. Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other for or against? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 18.2, which is regulatory compliance report for April 2024. Here we've got the council receives and notes the regulatory services report for April 2024. Just call on the general manager, through the general manager to the director, just to briefly give us a top line. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the General Manager again. Once again, an indication of key issues and resourcing considerations. Companion animals continue to be the bane of our existence, along with illegal dumping of vehicles. Managing those challenges, we're continuing to advocate in that space and work in collaboration with other agencies to try and resolve the complexities around abandoned vehicles, and we'll continue to keep council posted in relation to our efforts. There has been, unfortunately, no immediate outcomes following the inquiry around pounds in New South Wales. We're expecting, hopefully, in the new year that there might be some indication of where that will land.
Thank you very much, Director. Any questions for the Director on regulatory compliance? Councillor Bold.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the General Manager to the Director about the success or otherwise of the voluntary desexing of animals. If are you able to provide any detail about what you think might be the long-term trajectory of those sorts of programs, and whether there's an opportunity to for us to consider in the longer term to actually support these? Maybe there's some co-investment or something like that, because it would appear as if these sort of programs are successful, they ought to be driven as hard as we can afford to do.
Thank you much. I'll take that as a Director.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The desexing programs have been incredibly successful and have had some great outcomes, particularly within the lower socioeconomic cohort, people that can't afford to have their companion animals dissected. I think it's a program that myself and the team would like to see continue forward for a number of years, and it's going to be potentially a fundamental part of our companion animal management program. So certainly very supportive of that continuing forward. Also looking at co-investment by other providers and industry organisations like the Cat Protection Society. That's been an excellent partnership for this council, and looking at other opportunities, perhaps with RSPCA and other groups moving forward. So we're definitely committed to seeing that program continue.
Thank you very much, Director. Any other questions for the Director on this stage? Councillor Bond. Just
please, Mayor, it was really related to also then what financial impact does this have on council? I'm not asking for exact numbers, but if you have some idea about what that value is, and then also in terms of the engagement of our own staff and resources, what particularly is involved in resourcing those sorts of campaigns, either paid directly from that or just coming out from our general human capacity of driving those programs. Thank you.
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If it suits council, I may prepare a briefing note around that topic in respect of resourcing costs and internal skills application, and distribute that to council separately. Just to drill on that drill down on that question. It's a very good question.
Thank you very much. Do I have a mover for this motion? Councillor Clements, seconder. Councillor Bowen. Councillor Clements, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Briefly, look, I thank the staff for their efforts, and again, this is about transparency and accountability. And to those listening, it may seem at times we wave these reports through, but we read these reports and we appreciate them. And I thank the staff for their efforts. I endorse the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor, any other comments for or against this motion? Councillor Bowen.
Well, thank you. Yeah, just thank you for those answers to those questions. I really look forward to looking at that, and maybe these are some of the directions that that this council and future councils would look at in terms of resourcing this really important part of what now has become companion animals seem to be a really strong part of how society works these days, and you know, the more we can, they're the sort of things I think local government really should get involved in helping our local residents support their proclivity to have more animals than they probably can afford. So anyway, I think it's a really important part of our future work, and I really commend council on the work so far.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I think that, you know, the whole notion of cost shifting, this is another one of those examples where you get Macquarie Street or, you know, Canberra makes some edict, and, you know, frequently it's, you know, the little councils that actually have to deal with that, and we generally don't receive anything for that. And I think it'll be an interesting read to see what Donna has to write, certainly. Any other comments for or against this matter? I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour, all those against. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. We move to item 18.3. This is community advocacy opportunities for May 2024. It's one of our important roles on council, is to advocate on behalf of our community. The recommendation here is that council receive and note the report on May 2024 community advocacy opportunities, that council endorse the draft organisational submission on the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Regional Development, Infrastructure and Transport, inquiry into local government sustainability. Item 3, that council receives and note the submission made to the New South Wales Legislative Council Standing Committee on State Development, inquiry into the ability of local governments to fund infrastructure and services. Item 4, that council receives and notes the submission made to the Emergency Services Levy ESL reforms discussion paper. And finally, that council endorses the draft submission to the New South Wales Legislative Assembly inquiry into community safety in regional and rural communities. Might just get our general manager to it's his item just quickly.
Chair, in accordance with my earlier declaration, I will leave the meeting.
Okay.
I will extend that declaration. It's not simply the committees. I will actually be involved. The Emergency Services Levy is a bill currently, so draft legislation, and I am actually involved in the negotiations of that. I will leave the room.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clements. Okay. Councillor Clements left the room at 13 minutes past 2. Through the General Manager, I'll call on our Director of Planning and Sustainability just to walk us through these items, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through the General Manager, councillors acknowledge that there's a lot of information there on a lot of different advocacy items, and there are many inquiries underway at the moment at both the state and a federal level. What we've endeavoured to do is to capture councillors' feedback over the last since the beginning of your term in relation to your appetite for change, and also what the community are telling all of us in terms of what they'd like to see change. I think a particular note is the Emergency Services Levy, which I think is probably the most wicked form of cost shifting that we get to to see. It's not a particularly transparent process. The community, indeed even our staff, aren't aware of how that the mechanics of that current legislation works. So we've certainly tried to provide advice to the government's review process that indicates that that needs to fundamentally change. So happy to take the report as read and take on any additional feedback in respect of the draft submissions for inclusion of any extra items.
Councillors, I'm sure there's some questions here. Do we have any questions from the floor at this stage?
Mr Mayor, questioning from the floor, just a point of order. Should we move into motion? I mean, if you're unclear on the recommendation,
you can do it
ask
that way.
Question, but shouldn't we be discussing this once the motion's put?
You can do it that way, but
anyway,
you can do it that way. But that's not the way we're doing it.
It's up to you.
So, yep. But we're if there are any questions on specifically on this before people decide that they want to move a motion, then that's the way. Do we have any questions about this this item at all, or these items? Okay. Well, do I have a mover in this motion? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bohm, thank you very much. Councillor Richardson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. I do think it's important for our council and probably all local government sectors to start pushing back. By memory, it was a 53% increase for the emergency service levy, which, again, it's quite concerning. We can't recoup that money. It's not like we can then pass on a 53% increase to ratepayers. That's just, it would never happen. Even IPART, the recommendation is quite low. I think it was 3.5. Sorry, I'm looking at you, Donna. Was that correct? 3.5%. But yet some of our local government costings have increased by 53% for something that should be a state or federal thing. So thank you for the teams for doing that pushback, and I think all local LGAs for doing the same thing and standing up for us. Local governments can't afford this expenditure if we still want our day-to-day stuff to happen. We can't, say, okay, we can now afford this, but we now can't do anything to our roads. It doesn't work like that in local government. So it's a fair discussion to have and have that pushback. I think it's very warranted.
There's certainly a lot of heat on particularly the emergency services levy. I know from across country mayors and also local government New South Wales, there's an enormous amount of heat on this, and it's I don't think it's certainly not an easy one. Just the General Manager for a comment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, through the Chair. I just wanted to indicate the immense amount of work that the Director has done in the last month with regards to all of these submissions to inquiries, and to specifically note that the House of Representatives process into the sustainability of local government, we specifically Narrabri Shire was mentioned in that process, which was a real commendation to the quality of the work that the Director has done in terms of making these submissions. So I just wanted to specifically get that out there for people to know that we've really led from the front, and we have been noted in Canberra specifically through that sustainability process with one of our submissions.
Thank you very much. Here, I think all of the councillors would agree with that. It's a massive effort. I mean, I know it's only one motion, but there's a lot of underlying and sleepless nights, I'd suggest, Donna, so thank you. Any other comments to this? We have a mover, we have a seconder. Councillor Bowen.
Well, I guess in terms of seconding this motion, I commend the Director through you, the General Manager, about the ability, or what has occurred in this report does actually reflect what we've been talking about now for a couple of years. So I think that's very important. I do commend the Director and the Directorates to understand the sentiment in this room, and then to have that really go right to the core of the actual future sustainability of local government, because ultimately we have to understand what we're here to do, and it would be becoming increasingly clear to us all that we're asked to do significantly more, and in areas really not within the general remit of the Local Government Act and a whole bunch of things. So essentially this is basically heaping it on local government to shoulder the burden of government across our country. So I just commend the approach at listening to the room and to summarise in succinct form. I haven't finished reading all of this material, by the way. I've just had a few really good looks at a few parts of it, and I look forward to reading a lot more of it, like a lot of what's in this the agenda of this meeting. So anyway, that's I'd be very happy to support this motion as it stands. Thank you.
Certainly a lot of work there, and there's a plethora of inquiries happening at both federal and state level. Perhaps we could suggest that they have an inquiry into inquiries, because there's certainly far too many of them at the moment. Just get on with it. But thank you. I'll put it to the floor. Are there any other comments? So, Councillor, would you like to turn off your microphone? Sorry. Thank you. Any other comments, concerns? I'll just put it to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Can someone grab Councillor Clements, please? Thank you. What's the next item on this supplementary? Yeah. Councillor Clements returned to the chamber at 2:21. Thank you. We now move on to item 19, supplementary items, 19.1, which is the Renewable Energy Action Plan and the Renewable Energy Implementation Plan. It's just not coming up on my screen here. All right. The item here is that the council receives and notes the report on Renewable Energy Action Plan and the Renewable Energy Implementation Plan, that it endorses the draft Renewable Energy Action Plan and Implementation Plan consultation paper, and that the plan and consultation and implementation consultation plan be placed on public exhibition for a minimum of 28 days, and during the exhibition period we call for and accept submissions from the public, and that a report be returned to the council following the conclusion of the exhibition period at the next available ordinary council meeting, detailing the results of the public exhibition. Who's the... That's right. Do I have a mover of that motion, please? Councillor Bohm. Do I have a seconder of that motion? Councillor Clements. Would you like to speak to your motion, Councillor Bohm?
Thank you, Mayor. I will. I'll foreshadow an amendment as well, but just looking at the report, it is highly comprehensive in areas that are probably beyond the remit of the original motion that was moved early on in our term. So I think there needs to be a lot of work done by council, and perhaps in some briefing sessions. I believe it needs to come into a briefing session to get right down to the nitty-gritty of what it's really trying to tell us, because I think there's, I'm not going to say obfuscation, but there's a whole stack of information here that I don't think really directly relates to us. I think what was originally wanted was a very comprehensive view of our own consumption and and the ways that we can address that through renewable energy investments. And I don't know that it's got quite to that space. It's filled in the pages with a lot of material that I don't think is entirely necessary. It's got to trying to educate us. So I would, in speaking to the motion, suggest that item 2, that the council endorse the draft renewable energy action plan and implementation plan consulting paper. I would argue we should withdraw that item, because I think we're a long way from being able to endorse that. I think we need, as a council, to have some time to discuss what it's really trying to say and what the recommendations that we would like to put to community to think about, because this would, if implemented, require a few changes in directions and some significant investments. And
sorry, councillor, before you proceed, sorry, just take your seat for a moment, if you can grab your seat. So just trying to get clarity for the whole chamber. Are you moving this motion or you're not moving it?
Mayor, I moved the motion, but I foreshadowed that item number 2 being withdrawn from the motion.
Well, he's allowed. So you're...
I would move it then.
Yep.
On the basis that we also then withdraw item number 2 from it. And that was in my discussion of it, but I think that we're a long way away from being in a position of actually endorsing this as an actual renewable energy action plan. It's more of a discussion paper.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I have a clarification, please.
Councillor.
I would, in response to Councillor Bones moving the motion with removal of 2, are there any timing issues in terms of applications that will run foul of, please?
Through the General Manager to the Director.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. No, purely bound by our obligations under our operational plan.
Any other comments from the floor? Councillors? Seconder was Councillor Clements. Sorry, Councillor, do I...
I have another point of clarification.
Yes.
Please. And by removing 2, are we allowed to put the plan on consultation?
It's an exceptionally good question. Through the General Manager to the Director. Sorry.
I don't think there's anything prohibiting us from putting it on public exhibition. It's just an unusual way to do it. Usually the council endorse it before it goes on, but there's nothing that I'm aware of that says we can't.
On the seconder, I'd ask Councillor Bowen to reflect on that and perhaps talk to us on that, please.
So I gather that you're not necessarily seconding the motion as modified by the councillor. Interesting. Councillor Bowen, would you like to just clarify this matter, please?
Well, I guess that then, if what you're saying then suggests that we can't put it on to public exhibition, I still don't believe that. I believe that the whole community needs to be engaged in this process, as does the council itself. There is a lot of content here that needs to be in the report that I've read anyway, is subservient to the original. Additional to the original motion that we called for a couple of years back. I think it needs to be much more succinct as a report and provide much more direct application to what it is that we need to know as a council. So I don't really see a problem in having the community engage with this at the same time as us, and then a report be made upon which we would then further consider.
Thank you, councillor. Sorry, we're just clarifying a couple of matters up here. Councillor Campbell.
I think this is the draft renewable action plan up for conversation and comment within the community. I can't see, and it's comprehensive. I can't see any reason that we need to take, with all due respect, item 2 out of it. I don't see it serving any constructive purpose other than, I just think we should just move forward on this and put it on public display and look forward to the public's comments on what is a comprehensive plan and a lot of work's gone into it.
Thank you very much, councillor. Sorry, councillor Richardson won't be a moment. Councillor Richardson.
I'm in support of all 4 motions. I think this is a comprehensive document. It goes down to detail the top 10 council buildings as well. It's very clear. So, for example, the aquatic centre is 39,000 kilowatts it uses per annum. It makes suggestions on what to do. I think it looks tardy on council if we put something on exhibition that we do not endorse. From my perspective, it's saying that we're putting something on exhibition we're not happy with. I don't think we should be doing that. I'm quite happy with both. I'm going to call them both REAPs and Narrabri, or however we want to pronounce the acronyms. And I do look forward to, if it does go on public exhibition, hopefully we can have a more thorough briefing perhaps in council, and I do look forward to the community engagement in it. I do know Jenny Energy, a local provider, has been involved in this as well. We've used local electricity companies. It's not just a one sort of person bias. It's very thorough.
Just a comment by the General Manager. Sorry, Councillor Clements.
Thank you. Look, following Councillor Campbell's comments and Councillor Richardson's, as a seconder, it would be my preference if point 2 stayed in with the approval of the mover, with the addition of the words pending public response and further discussion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clements. I'll just call upon the General Manager for a quick comment.
Through the chair, look, I think the discussion is sort of heading in a good direction, positive direction, which I'm optimistic of an outcome. But I just want to provide a bit of extra advice, and that is insofar as the point that if we go to public submission process and the REAP is significantly adjusted following that process by councillors rather than what we receive through submissions, there is a danger that we would then go out, we would be required to go out again for public submissions. So it's just a thought, but I do concur with what I'm hearing in terms of it showing leadership within the room if councillors do endorse this plan. But I just wanted to sort of throw that additional sort of skew that may occur, and it's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with going back out to public submission, but if it does change, but that will be an occurrence, which is just to alert you to that possibility.
Thank you very much, General Manager. So at this stage, the mover, can I just get clarity on whether you're happy with what we've got there? For item number 2 there, we've got the council endorse the draft renewable energy action plan and implementation plan consultation paper pending public response and further discussion.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I am supportive of that, but also taking in mind the comments of General Manager related to the fact that we might get more, we might have responses beyond that. Well, if that's the case, then we do. I think we should accept that because we are not the sole arbiter of these matters. And as I said earlier on in my comments, this is a very potentially significant change of focus and investment by council. There would be investments and financial commitments well beyond our existing budgets and so on. So we need to take that into account. So I think we need to really certainly put a very clear note that we are expecting, that we should expect and or anticipate significant public response, of which I'm not aware, but I would imagine that would be the case. We should take that into account and listen very carefully to what the community says.
Very much. The seconder, Councillor Clements, I assume that you're happy with that. Any councillors, do we have any other comments for or against this motion at any stage? I'm going to put that to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. We now move into the confidential or closed part of the council meeting. I have my item here, sorry. Now, the reason for confidentiality, councillors, and we will have a vote on this in a minute, is that the council is satisfied pursuant to section 10A2 of the Local Government Act that information to be received or discussed or considered in relation to this agenda item is either personal matters relating to particular individuals, commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of a person who supplied it, and finally, information would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council. The reason being that these reports contain details from applications that include commercial in confidence information to personal information. Do I have a mover of the motion that we move into confidential closed? Councillor Redding, seconded by Councillor Richardson. I'll throw that to the floor. All those in favour? All those against? It's carried unanimously. We're in closed now, Council. My doc's on tap, seems. We're back in the room. I'll just formally, I'm required to give the floor to the General Manager to relay the results of the closed session. So I'll hand it to the General Manager for an update to the community as to the results. Sorry, I'll hand that to the General Manager just to give a relay. We've got, so we've got those two items, 20.1 and 20.2. Yeah, sorry.
Because the numbers were changed, so I can't.
Oh, sorry.
The agenda.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so there were two resolutions. One was on the paper applications for Community Financial Assistance Grant, round 3. The council receives and notes applicants for the Community Financial Assistance Grant, round 3, 2023-24, and a total of $25,665 in funds be allocated from the 63151 Donations Community Assistance Scheme to the following applicants as detailed in the report and attached merit checklist. Applicant 1, $5,000. Applicant 2, $5,015. Applicant 3, nil, obtained grant funding. Applicant 4, the application did not meet criteria. Applicant 5, $2,500. Applicant 6, nil. Applicant 7, nil. Applicant 8, $950. Applicant 9, $3,000. Applicant 10, $2,700. Applicant 11, $1,500. Applicant 12, nil. Applicant 13, $2,000. Applicant 14, $3,000 to cover catering and advertising expenditure. 2, that round 1 of 2024-25 of the Community Financial Assistance Grant be advertised with the closing date of the 15th of August 2024, with the funding amount to be announced upon release of the 2024-25 council budget. And the second resolution was in relation to 2023-24/46 construction of curb and gutter infrastructure, and the resolution note that council reject the tender received for 2023-24/46 construction of curb and gutter infrastructure in Narrabri Shire. Both motions were carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager. Thank you, councillors. At the time of 3:22, have a safe week, everyone, and look forward to the next meeting. Thank you.